talk to you about all things keto. It is this huge trend. It's been going on for like a couple years now, probably even longer than that. And I think that it's important that we kind of bring attention to some of the health risks and how it works, what the benefits are, and why it might not be working for you, and why it does work. So the word keto comes from ketosis, and ketosis is defined as, I looked it up, a metabolic state in which the body uses ketones as its main energy source. So you may be wondering, what the heck are ketones? I'm going to tell you. Ketones are basically acidic buildups that are produced when the body is burning fat without carbohydrates. So as you know, or maybe you don't, carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, and that's what's released into the bloodstream and then is transferred into your cells of the body. So when the body doesn't have any glucose present in the bloodstream, it must get its energy source from somewhere else, and that's where the ketones come in. So your fat is then broken down into these ketones, and those are what goes into your bloodstream, and they are then released into your tissues to use as energy. So your body can either produce glucose or ketones as its energy source, and the only way to get ketones as your energy source is to stop consuming anything that is broken down into glucose, which is carbs. So this brings me to the diet of a keto diet. So what do you eat, how much of what do you eat, and just like what is the diet? So let's talk macros. Your macronutrients are protein, carbohydrates, and fat. So on the keto diet, you should be typically eating 20% or less of protein. For carbohydrates, you should be eating about 5 to 10%. Then for fat, you should be consuming 70 to 80%. To put this into perspective, say you're on a 2,000 calorie diet, like you're eating 2,000 calories a day, you burn 2,000 calories a day. That means that you should be eating 100 grams or less of protein, 25 grams or less of carbs, and about 170 grams of fat or more. Kind of to put the carbohydrate into perspective, 25 grams of carbs is basically a piece of bread or a piece of toast. And that's as much carbs as you should be eating the entire day, which is not a lot. It's not a lot of carbs at all. And that's because your body will break it down into glucose, and once you start breaking down glucose and using that as the energy fuel, your body will no longer produce ketones, and then you get kicked out of ketosis. So now that we're done talking about macros, let's talk about how can you lose fat on this diet. So in order to lose any weight at all, you have to be in a caloric deficit. And a caloric deficit is when you are eating less calories than you are burning. Say you're eating 2,000 calories a day, you should then subtract 100 to 500 calories per day from that. So you should be eating like anywhere from 1,500 to 1,900 calories a day, and that'll help you lose about a pound a week, which is the healthiest amount of weight you should be losing every week, or else you'll start to starve yourself, and then you'll start storing all of that fat, and it just slowly losing weight will help it become more sustainable and keep it off. But the thing that's different with keto is that when you first start keto, you should not be in a caloric deficit. This is because you want to get your body used to burning fat as its fuel and its main source of energy. So once your body is getting used to burning fat, it'll go into the state of ketosis, which is where the ketones are produced and where it's using the ketones as its main fuel source instead of glucose, because there is no glucose in the body to use. So after your body gets into ketosis is when you can start the caloric deficit, which is subtracting 100 to 500 calories per day. But if you are realizing that you're still hungry after being in a caloric deficit, increase your calorie intake. You shouldn't be hungry when you're on this diet. Even if you're losing weight and at a caloric deficit, you should still be reaching fullness and feeling full. So now let's talk about the problems with keto and why it might not be working. 1, you might be eating too many carbohydrates. As simple as that. If you are eating too many carbs, which is like 20 grams or more per day, your body will start producing insulin, which will break down glucose and release glucose into your cells, which means that you're no longer producing ketones, and it just kicks you out of ketosis. Once you're kicked out of ketosis, you have to restart the whole process again, and you have to start it over, and it's just like it's just a lot, and you want to make sure that you're staying in ketosis. So make sure that you're not eating too many carbs. Number 2, you might be eating too much protein. And as crazy as that sounds, it's so true. So if you do not know this already, when you break down glucose and you have extra glucose and you need to store it somewhere, your body will store it in either the liver or in the muscles. When you're eating protein, your muscles are being fueled with that protein, which means that the body can then go into your muscles, which means that glucose will then be released into the bloodstream and you're kicked out of ketosis. Now there is one way to make sure that you're not being kicked out of ketosis, and that is to check your ketone levels. And there's only a couple ways to do so. You can either buy ketone level testing strips, which are basically just strips that you like pee on, and it'll have like a color show up, and you match it to the color on the bottle. It'll tell you your ketone level. Or you can get one of those like blood testing ones, which is the most accurate because it literally takes your blood and measures how many ketones are in there. Okay, so now let's talk about the health risks and why it might be kind of risky. Keto can be extremely beneficial and actually healthy for you. So some of the benefits of keto are obviously losing body fat and losing weight quickly and efficiently. It has also been proven to relieve some symptoms of chronic diseases, which is amazing, I think. It's just kind of crazy how your body can go into this state of burning your fat, and it can just like help relieve these symptoms. Like, I'm not really sure how it works, but I read this study and it's crazy. But if keto is done improperly, it can actually lead to many permanent health problems, and it can be detrimental to your health, and it's just kind of scary. So you want to make sure that you're doing it the right way. I am not any kind of health professional, and I'm not qualified in any type of way. This is just like my own knowledge and what I've done to research on keto. So please do not take this as any medical help. It's just my own knowledge and what I think you should do. So if you are going to start keto, I highly, highly, highly recommend going to see a health professional. Either go see your primary doctor or go to a dietitian or a nutritionist, because they know everything about keto and they can really help you through this whole process. You want to make sure that you're working with a health professional so that way you are getting the health benefits without any of the health risks. But I do know that one of the health risks is eating too much of a certain fat. So there are multiple different fats. There are saturated fats, there are unsaturated fats, there are polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, there are trans fats, but now it is not allowed to have any trans fats in food that's regulated by the FDA. So you don't have to worry about the trans fats because those are the worst for you. That's why they're no longer allowed in your food by the FDA. But the saturated fats are fine and they're like good for you, but too much of them is not good. So saturated fats are your fats that are solid at room temperature. So butter, fats on animal meats, coconut oil. I can't really think of any more, but they're just usually animal product fats. These fats are proven to lead to cardiovascular disease as they are solidified at room temperature and they can clog your arteries and just cause lots of health problems. But that's if you're eating so much of them. But since on keto you're eating about 80% of fat, if all of that fat is coming from saturated, you're probably going to have some kind of health issue if you continue keto for a really, really long time. Now, if you're getting your fat from all different kinds of sources, you're probably in a good position and you probably aren't at risk. But go see a health professional and be in contact with a doctor at all times, because this diet is crazy. It can work really well, but if you're not doing it the right way, it can have some very terrible health risks. But you can try eating more unsaturated fats, poly and monounsaturated fats. You can get these from sources such as nuts and peanut butter and olive oil and all different types of vegetable oils. These are just oils that are definitely better for you, and definitely be mixing up what kind of foods you're eating every day, because if you get the same fats from your same sources every single day, you're more likely to have more health risks. So to go back on the ketones and your ketone levels, when you're measuring your ketone levels, ketosis is generally from 0.2 to 5. And that's like where you should range between when you're in ketosis. But there is a state called ketoacidosis. So if you've never heard of this, this is something that diabetics will sometimes go through, and it's when your body either doesn't produce insulin, which is what happens when you're in keto, or your body is insulin resistant, and so your body is producing so many ketones from your body fat as a fuel source, and when you produce too many ketones, it can become detrimental, and you can actually die from it. I mean, that's a little extreme, but you can, and it's just so much acid building up in your bloodstream, and it just becomes toxic to your body. So ketoacidosis is extremely dangerous, and that's when your ketone levels are 10 or above. This is why you should be measuring your ketone levels when you're doing keto, or be in contact with a health professional and be seeing a doctor about this, because it's scary, and it's something that can happen. It is rare, but it can definitely 100% happen to you, and please go see a health professional and be measuring your ketone levels. Just please do that. Okay, so now that we're done talking about the health risks, let's talk about how you can start getting off of keto. So you can do keto for like a couple months or even a couple of years, but like I said before, make sure you are seeing a doctor, because it's just so important. So I'm going to start off by explaining to you how carbohydrates are digested if you don't already know. So carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, which is released into the bloodstream. And in order for the glucose to be released into your cells, your pancreas must produce insulin. So insulin is produced by the pancreas, which then goes into your bloodstream and basically opens the door to your cells of your body and releases the glucose into those cells. So if you are on keto, your body is not producing insulin and hasn't produced insulin since you started ketosis. This means that your body is in a state of burning fat and not carbohydrates. So when you first introduce carbohydrates back into your body's kind of gonna go into shock. It's gonna know that you have to produce insulin, but it's not used to producing insulin, so it won't produce sufficient amount of insulin to release glucose into the bloodstream. So what happens with this is your glucose goes into your bloodstream, and it just keeps building up and building up and building up, and that's when your blood sugar levels get super high. And when you have super high blood sugar, it's not good, and it's not healthy for you. But that will only happen if you eat like a lot of carbs right at once. So my recommendation for you is, if you're going on keto for a while and you are trying to get off of it, you should slowly introduce carbohydrates back into your diet. So if you're eating less than 20 grams a day of carbohydrates, slowly go up to 30, and then go up to 40, and do that like in tiny little amounts per couple of days. So your body is slowly getting used to burning carbohydrates and glucose as its source of fuel. But you shouldn't be learning this from me. You should be going to see a doctor about it, because it's super important, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a health professional, so you should be getting your advice from a doctor. Just saying. I don't think I can say it enough times, because it's super important, and just do it. So yeah, that is my understanding and my knowledge on the keto diet. I think I said it well enough and explained it well enough, but if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. But make sure that you are seeing a doctor, as it is super important to make sure that you're still in a healthy state as you're going through this diet. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it was helpful and informative. So please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have one. If you don't have a channel, make sure you make one and subscribe to my channel, please. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video.